Sphinx. The one who broke the nose of the Sphinx was Napoleon Bonaparte, the leader of the French campaign against Egypt, where he directed all his guns towards the Sphinx in order to completely destroy it. But it is surprising that after all the shells he fired, only his nose was broken from the Sphinx. Because of the strength and stiffness of Sphinx, do you think this story is true? Hey, really not real. Another story. The statue of the Sphinx from the moment of its construction in the year 2558 BC has been built without a nose, meaning that its nose did not fall out, as some say, and that it was built from the ground in this way. Do you think this is a true story? Hey, really not real. Another story. The statue of the Sphinx was completed very naturally, but the sons of the kings of the pharaohs were competing with archery arrows for who could drop the nose of the Sphinx, and that one of them hit it at one time and broke it. Of course, this is an unreal story. Another last saying. It is said that the reason to break the nose of the Sphinx are aliens. In fact, the topic may be unique and interesting, until these are all sayings and rumors that spread about the Sphinx statue on the Giza Plateau next to the pyramids. A statue made of stones, and in the middle of the pyramid's site. Its body is the body of a lion and its head is the head of a human being. In it there is a mixture between the strength of the mind and the strength of the body, but despite this, a number of stories and assumptions have collapsed over him over the ages because of his broken nose. But what is the real thing, and what is the fake, and what is the reason for the construction of the Sphinx in the original, and who built? Is the head of the Sphinx an inscription of one of the kings of the pharaohs? Or just a random inscription? And more importantly, is the real story behind his broken nose? Welcome to our channel. If you are not a subscriber or the first time you see a video of us and want to follow us, please subscribe to the channel and do the bell button so that all the new videos of the channel arrive. Follow us. Horus the Falcon, or the Keeper of the Pyramids, are the names of which the ancient Egyptians knew the Sphinx and kept in their minds that he was the guardian of the Giza region with all the temples, tombs and pyramids of the Sphinx. It is a mythical creature that possesses the body of a lion and the head of a human being carved from one of the huge rocks that it was thought was used in the past as a quarry to extract stones. Its length is about 73 meters and its width is about 20 meters, which, in turn, made it one of the largest statues of the world at all, but it is one of the oldest sculptures known to mankind in general. The statue is decorated with a royal headdress similar to the one that was worn by the kings of the pharaohs. It is most likely that the entire statue was colored and full of inscriptions, drawings and decorations. And the evidence for this is the presence of traces of some original colors next to one of his ears. And according to some estimates, the ancient Egyptians took about 3 consecutive years by about 100 a professional sculptor and worker. They used stone hammers and chisels made of copper. As for the reason for building the statue, who built it, or what it symbolizes, this is another story. Researchers have so far differed in their opinions regarding the Sphinx and who the owner of the statue is. Some attribute its construction to King Khufu, the owner of the Great Pyramid, while others attribute it to King Khafra, the owner of the Second Pyramid, which is most likely the most likely possibility. The reason for this belief is that there is a similarity between the face of the Sphinx and a number of statues of King Khafra, and it is believed that the idea of building the statue is that King Khafra wanted to sanctify his father, King Khufu, and commemorate his memory, and that is why he built the statue in front of a temple where rituals for the king are held. And this is a kind of sanctification and gratitude. The main goal of its construction is that King Khafra shows his power through the statue and nothing more. A king with the mind and wisdom of a human being, but with the power and ferocity of a lion, and it is possible that a question may arise in the minds of some people about Sphinx. Which is why a lion specifically? Why did King Kafur choose the lion to represent his statue without the rest of the animals? The fact is that the presence of animals in the culture and rituals of the pharaohs is something common in general. Pharaohs used to depict their own deity as an animal part and a human part. In fact, some animals were buried in their own cemeteries, and in the city of Abydos, located in southern Upper Egypt, archaeologists discovered a collection of tombs of ancient kings that contained very strange bone remains. And it was strange that they were not human at all, and when compared to some of the skeletal bones, it was discovered that they were the bones of a lion. The ancient kings buried lions in their cemeteries, and this is according to their belief that these animals will be in their service in the other world, and that they will derive strength and courage from them. This indicates that the culture of imitating blackness is an ancient culture that is widespread among Egyptians, and as a natural extension to it, King Kafur decided to take from the lion a body for the statue of the Great Sphinx in order to show it the extent of its power. When we talk about the most famous thing known about the Sphinx, his broken nose is The statue of the Sphinx had a long nose and a width of about 1 meter, but it lost it for some reason, and it is no longer present at the present time. One of the most famous reasons attributed to the story of the broken nose is the story of Napoleon and his campaign against Egypt and the truth. It is unexpected that Napoleon is completely innocent of this accusation, the charge of the broken nose. The reason for this is that the European explorer Frederick Lowe painted a painting of the Sphinx in the year 1737 AD during his exploratory journey to Egypt and Sudan, in which we recorded the notes and drawings on the pharaonic antiquities and architecture in the two countries, and later published them in a book entitled A Journey to Egypt and Nubia. The witness in the matter is that Frederick Lowe painted a precise painting of the Sphinx, in which he appeared without a nose. And this happened before the French campaign and tens of years before the birth of Napoleon. So the story of Napoleon's defender is not true. So what is the truth? The fact is that there is a widely circulated narration that says that there was a person called Muhammad fasting forever, and he was living near the statue of the Sphinx. And he noticed that people looked at the statue with a look of reverence and fearlessness. He fled to demolish a part of the statue by a sharp god in order to prove to them that it is unholy. The nose of the statue, but of course there is no evidence of the veracity of this story, and the most famous hypothesis regarding this case is still based on the factors of stripping. That is why most of the historical narratives say that the nose fell on its own with the passage of time due to its being a weak part of the statue and no one broke it. The evidence for this is that the Sphinx had, in addition to the nose, a stone beard similar to the beard found in statues of kings, and he also had a snake at the top of the head area. But all of this fell as a result of stripping and fell to the ground. Indeed, they recently found some parts of the Sphinx's beard, some of which are in the British Museum in London, and others are in the Cairo Museum. It is worth noting that the factors of stripping are also the main reason that there are no inscriptions or drawings on the Sphinx at all, and this is because it was exposed over time to floods and sand coverings for long periods of time. And on the mention of sand to the cover of the Sphinx, one of the new things that some people hear is that it is directly in front of the Sphinx, specifically between its two front arms, a painting that exceeds thousands of years old. This painting bears the name of the Dream Board, and its story is very funny. Before 1401 BC, Thutmose IV decided that he would tour the pyramids of Giza and stopped next to the statue of the Sphinx and decided that he slept a little and took a rest. And in this period the sand covered almost the entire Sphinx and only his head was left. It was a sweet time, Thutmose's, that the Sphinx appeared to him in the dream, and that he was very upset with the sand that covered him and asked him to remove the sand, in return for making him a ruler over Egypt. Indeed, a disease that is eager to restore the Sphinx and remove all the sand and spread his story everywhere and start to seek the ruling despite of the fact that he was not the owner of the legal right. But indeed he was crowned the throne of Egypt thanks to the story he published, and it is said that he published this story from the basis with the aim of his arrival to power. But in the end the Sphinx was saved from the sand, and the fact was recorded as the most famous sand removal process that the Sphinx was exposed to from during his history. Thutmose IV decided to immortalize this story and ordered the placement of a rectangular plate. As for Sphinx, there are drawings carved by Thutmose IV offering sacrifices to the Sphinx. And through it, he tells of the promise he received from him that he will become the ruler of the country, and the text of the words found says, "I went out to hunt on the Pyramids Plateau, and it was a very hot day, and went to the Sphinx until I took shelter in the shade from the sun." The painting was found in 1817 AD, and it is in a very poor condition and exposed to erosion by rain and stripping factors. It was translated and interpreted by the hieroglyphic symbols on it. It was copied in more than one copy, and one of them is in the British Museum in London. It is worth noting that Sphinx, located in Giza, is not the only statue in the form of a human head and the body of a lion. This form exists from more than one model and in more than one civilization. Within the same Egyptian civilization there are other models of the Sphinx that were built as a glorification of kings and queens, including, for example, the statue of Queen Hatshepsut. In addition to a number of statues of the sun goddess, as well as statues found on the Rams Road in the Karnak temple in Luxor. This Road of Rams is a passageway. As for the Temple of Karnak, there is at its beginning a large group of statues facing each other on the sides, and their sitting position is completely similar to the position of the Sphinx sitting. The body of a lion and the head in the form of a ram's head, which is a symbol of the god Amun. As for other civilizations, we will find mythical creatures very similar to the Great Sphinx in Greece, Europe, Southeast Asia, and a large number of Indian temples. There, the Sphinx appears in more than one place and more than one form. The fact is that if there are images of the Sphinx in different civilizations, like some kind of telepathy, there is a picture of it that appeared recently and its story is a little strange. In our current era, it has become very possible to have a Chinese replica of any product in the world. That is, yes, the raw material and the quality is lower, but its price is lower, and the wholesale made in China has become available on every product. But it is unusual for you to see the sentence written on a copy of the Sphinx, where China made a replica of the Great Sphinx of approximately the size of it, and it was placed in the city of Chengyuan, 280 kilometers from the capital Beijing, in an atmosphere similar to the city of the pyramids in Giza. The event was very famous and provoked the Egyptian Antiquities Authority, and they raised an invitation to UNESCO that this is a violation of the Egyptian identity and is considered an unacceptable behavior and a very long maneuver to try to remove